Dust devils danced across the landing pad as Iris Wade secured the cargo straps on her ship. The wind on Theros 7 never really stopped, just changed direction and intensity like a living thing with moods. She had been flying supply runs for 3 years now, and the red-orange landscape still looked alien to her eyes. The rocks jutted up like broken teeth, and the sky held a purple tint that made everything feel slightly wrong. Her ship was nothing special. A medium hauler with scratched paint and a temperamental left engine. But it flew, and that was all that mattered to the Terran Mining Consortium. They cared about deliveries, not appearances. Iris preferred it that way. Less attention meant fewer questions about her past. The Drakens soared overhead in formation, their massive wings catching the thermal currents that rose from the heated stone. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories, but meaner, sharper. Their scales reflected the sunlight in shades of bronze and copper, and their eyes tracked every human movement with obvious disdain. The mining treaty between humans and Drakens was only 5 years old, and nobody pretended it was friendly. The Drakens tolerated humans because the mining operations brought trade goods they wanted. Humans tolerated Drakens because this was their planet first. Iris checked her manifest one more time. Medical supplies for Outpost 7, replacement drill bits for the northern excavation, and 3 crates of fresh vegetables grown in the orbital hydroponics bay. Nothing interesting, nothing dangerous. Exactly how she liked her days. A screech echoed from the cliff face to her left. Iris looked up to see a group of young Drakens circling near the nesting grounds. They moved in tight spirals, practicing aerial maneuvers. One of them broke formation and dove toward something below. The others followed, and their screeches turned mocking. Iris tried to ignore it. Draken social dynamics were not her problem. She had enough problems, but curiosity made her walk around her ship to get a better view. On a flat stone about 50 meters away, something small and dark huddled against the rock. The young Drakens took turns swooping close, their wing beats kicking up dust and small stones. Whatever was on the ground tried to make itself smaller. One of the Drakens landed hard beside the small shape. Even from this distance, Iris could see it was much larger than the thing cowering on the stone. The large Draken opened its mouth, showing rows of sharp teeth, and made a sound that was clearly threatening. Then it took off again, joining its companions in the sky. They circled once more and then flew away toward the nests, their calls fading into the wind. Iris walked closer, knowing she should not, but doing it anyway. Her boots crunched on the gravelly ground. The small shape on the stone did not move. When she got within 10 meters, she could see it clearly. A baby Draken. A hatchling. It was maybe the size of a large dog, dark gray with hints of silver along its spine, but something was wrong with it. Its wings were too small and they did not fold properly against its body. One wing bent at an odd angle and the other seemed thinner than it should be. The hatchling's head lifted slightly. Golden eyes met hers. There was no aggression in that look. Only exhaustion and something that looked almost like resignation. Iris stopped walking. "Hey," she said softly, though she knew it could not understand her words. "Rough day?" The hatchling did not respond. Its sides heaved with each breath, and Iris could see its ribs clearly under the scales. It was starving. She took another step forward, and the hatchling flinched but did not run. Maybe it could not run. Maybe it had given up. "I can't help you," Iris said, as much to herself as to the creature. "Regulations. No contact with native fauna. I could lose my license." The golden eyes just watched her. Iris stood there for a long moment, then shook her head and walked back to her ship. She had a schedule to keep. The outposts were waiting for their supplies. This was not her problem. The Drakens took care of their own, or they did not. Either way, it was not her business. She climbed into the cockpit and ran through her pre-flight checks. The engines hummed to life, and she felt the familiar vibration through the pilot's seat. This was her world, the ship, the sky, the simple task of getting from point A to point B. Everything else was just noise. As the landing struts retracted, Iris glanced at her rear camera display. The hatchling was still on the stone, not moving. Just a small dark shape against the red rocks. She lifted off and turned the ship north toward Outpost 7. The hatchling disappeared from her screen. For the entire 3-hour flight, Iris told herself she had done the right thing. Non-interference was not just a rule. It was common sense. Getting involved in Draken affairs would create problems she did not need. She had worked too hard to rebuild her career here. One mistake had already cost her everything once before. She would not make another, but when she closed her eyes that night in her small quarters at Outpost 7, she saw golden eyes watching her, waiting for something she could not give. The next morning, she flew back to the main colony. She did not look at the stone where the hatchling had been. She did not want to know if it was still there or if the wasteland had claimed another life. Theros 7 was a harsh world. Weakness did not survive here. That should have been the end of it. But 3 days later, when Iris landed at Pad 14 with another cargo load, she saw something move behind the storage containers. Something small and gray with wings that did not work right. The hatchling had followed her home. The maintenance logs on Iris's datapad showed 3 hydraulic warnings, 2 pressure fluctuations, and a thruster misalignment that kept getting worse. Her ship was falling apart one system at a time, just like everything else in the colony. Parts took weeks to arrive from orbit, and mechanics charged triple rates because they knew pilots had no choice. Iris lay on her back under the portside landing gear, wrench in hand, trying to tighten a valve that had probably been loose since before she bought the ship. Grease stained her flight suit, and her shoulder ached from the awkward angle. This was not how she imagined her life would be when she graduated from Flight Academy. But then again, very little had gone according to plan. A small sound made her pause, a scraping like claws on metal. She rolled out from under the ship and sat up, scanning the landing pad. Cargo containers lined the southern edge. A fuel truck sat near Pad 15. Everything looked normal. But she had learned to trust her instincts, and her instincts said something was watching her. "Hello?" she called out, feeling foolish immediately. If it was a person, they would answer. If it was not, talking would not help. Nothing responded. The wind whistled through the pad structures, and somewhere in the distance a Draken called out to its companions. Normal sounds of the colony. Iris went back under the ship. 5 minutes later, she heard the sound again, closer this time. She slid out fast and turned her head just in time to see a small gray shape disappear behind a cargo container. The hatchling. It was definitely the same one. She recognized the malformed wings and the way it moved, half running and half dragging itself because flight was impossible. "You should not be here," Iris said, climbing to her feet. She walked toward the cargo container, but the hatchling moved again, staying just out of reach. It peered around the corner with those golden eyes watching her every move. "Seriously, you need to go back to your family, nest, whatever." Iris gestured vaguely toward the cliffs where the Draken nesting ground stretched for kilometers. The hatchling did not move. Iris took a step forward. The hatchling took a step back, maintaining the distance between them. Its scales were dusty, and it looked even thinner than before. How long had it been since it ate? "I cannot help you," Iris said firmly. "It is against regulations. Do you understand?" "Regulations," she pointed at herself, then at the hatchling, then made an X with her arms. Universal gesture for forbidden, or she hoped it was universal. The hatchling tilted its head, and Iris had the uncomfortable feeling it understood more than it should. Then it turned and scuttled away, disappearing between 2 containers and out of sight. Iris stood there for a moment, then shook her head and returned to her repairs. Not her problem. Not her responsibility, but the hatchling kept appearing. Over the next 2 weeks, Iris saw it at least once every day. Sometimes at the landing pad, sometimes near the refueling station, once near the colony mess hall where food waste was collected before being processed. It never got close. It never tried to approach. It just watched. Other pilots started noticing too. "Hey Wade, you got a pet now?" called out Riker, a cargo hauler who flew the northern routes. He laughed as he said it, and his co-pilot joined in. "It is not a pet," Iris said coldly. "It is following me. I did not ask for it. Yeah, well, you better get rid of it before the Drakens notice. They hate weakness, you know. That thing is an embarrassment to them. If they see it hanging around humans, they might decide we are corrupting their young or some nonsense." Iris knew he was right. The treaty was fragile. The Drakens looked for any excuse to prove that humans did not belong on Theros 7. A deformed hatchling adopting a human pilot could be twisted into some kind of violation. She tried to lose the hatchling. She varied her landing pads, changed her schedule, even took off unexpectedly a few times. But somehow the small creature always found her again. It ran across the rocky terrain between pads, staying low to avoid being seen by adult Drakens. Once Iris saw it climbing up a nearly vertical cliff face, its malformed wings useless, but its claws finding purchase in tiny cracks. It was determined. She had to give it that. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after she first saw it. Iris was performing a supply drop at Outpost 12, an isolated research station built into a canyon wall. The landing was tricky, requiring precise maneuvering between rock formations. She had done it dozens of times, but it never got easier. As she approached, her proximity alarm screamed. A flock of native creatures, something like flying reptiles but with 6 wings, had nested in the canyon. They swarmed toward her ship, drawn by the engine heat. Iris swore and banked hard left, then dove to avoid a collision. The creatures followed, their shrieks deafening even through the hull. She needed to lose them before landing, or they would tear apart the ship's sensor arrays. Iris pulled a tight spiral, using the canyon walls to break line of sight, then shot upward at full thrust. The creatures fell behind, unable to match her acceleration. But as she climbed, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The hatchling was on a ledge below, right in the path of the swarm. It had followed her ship into the canyon and gotten trapped. The creatures were veering toward it now, their hunting instincts triggered by easy prey. The hatchling tried to spread its wings to fly, but they barely extended. It was helpless, Iris did not think. She flipped the ship into a dive, dropping like a stone toward the ledge. Her thrusters blasted at full power, creating a wall of superheated air that scattered the creatures. They scattered, shrieking in confusion and anger. She pulled up at the last second, her landing struts nearly scraping the rock. The turbulence from her engines knocked the hatchling onto its side. But it was alive, and the creatures were gone, fled to safer hunting grounds. Iris hovered there for a moment, watching the small shape struggle back to its feet. It looked up at her cockpit window, and even from this distance she could see recognition in those golden eyes. She had saved it. And now they both knew she cared. Weather reports scrolled across the colony's main display screen in bright red letters. Crimson Tempest alert, all flights grounded. Personnel advised to seek shelter immediately. Estimated duration, 72 hours. Iris had seen these storms before, though never experienced one directly. The atmospheric conditions on Theros 7 could spawn electrical tempests that turned the sky into a weapon. Lightning strikes powerful enough to melt stone. Winds that could strip flesh from bone. The colonists had learned to respect these storms or die trying to fight them. She secured her ship with triple redundancy on the tie-downs and moved all sensitive equipment into the reinforced cargo bay. Other pilots hurried across the pad doing the same. Everyone had seen the footage from 2 years ago when a storm caught 3 ships unsecured. The wreckage was still visible from orbit, twisted metal fused to the landing pad by lightning strikes. The first drops of rain hit as Iris finished her checklist. They were not normal rain. The water was thick, almost oily, and it hissed when it touched the heated metal of her ship. Chemical rain, one of the many unpleasant features of Theros 7's atmosphere during storm conditions. "Wade, you planning to stand there all day?" shouted Peterson, another pilot, as he ran past toward the bunker complex. "Storm hits in 20 minutes. Iris nodded and grabbed her emergency kit from the cockpit. She took one last look around the pad, making sure everything was secure. Her eyes drifted to the cargo containers where she had last seen the hatchling. The small creature was nowhere in sight. Good. Probably went back to the nesting grounds. Drakens had instincts for this. They knew where to shelter. The adult Drakens were already gone, having fled to their cliff caves hours ago. The hatchling would have followed them. Iris started walking toward the bunker, but her steps slowed. The hatchling was an outcast. The other Drakens had rejected it. Would they let it into their storm shelters? Or would they drive it away, leaving it exposed to die in the tempest? "Not my problem," Iris muttered. She kept walking. The wind was picking up now, throwing dust and small rocks across the pad. The sky had turned a deep purple-black, and lightning flickered inside the clouds. Beautiful and deadly, she reached the bunker entrance. The heavy door was still open, and she could see other colonists inside, setting up cots and supplies for the long wait. These storms could not be stopped or controlled. You just had to endure them. Iris put her hand on the doorframe and looked back one more time. The landing pad was empty. Rain was falling harder now, each drop leaving small pockmarks in the dust. Thunder rolled across the landscape like artillery fire. She thought about Golden Eyes watching her. About a small creature that had been abandoned by its own kind and had chosen to follow her instead. About how it had climbed cliffs and crossed dangerous terrain just to be near her ship. "Damn it," Iris said. She dropped her emergency kit inside the bunker door. "Peterson! I forgot something in my ship." "Be right back." "Are you insane?" Peterson yelled. Storm hits in 15 minutes. But Iris was already running back across the pad, her jacket pulled up over her head against the burning rain. Her ship was a dark shape in the growing darkness. She ran past it, heading for the cargo containers. "Where are you?" she called out, knowing the wind would steal her words. "Come on, where are you?" Lightning struck somewhere close, and the thunder was instant and deafening. The storm was early. The reports had been wrong. Iris felt her hair stand up from the static electricity in the air. She needed to find shelter now, or she would not survive the next 5 minutes. She checked behind containers, between fuel tanks under loading equipment. Nothing. Maybe the hatchling really had found shelter with its own kind. Maybe she was risking her life for nothing. Then she saw it, a small gray shape wedged under a metal overhang near the colony's water processing unit. The hatchling had tried to create a shelter, but it was inadequate. The overhang would provide protection from rain, but not from lightning strikes or the debris the wind would soon be throwing around like missiles. "There you are," Iris gasped. She ran toward it, her boots splashing through puddles of chemical rainwater that stung even through her clothing. The hatchling saw her coming and pressed itself further under the overhang. It was terrified, its golden eyes wide. One wing was bent at an even worse angle than before, possibly broken from being battered by wind and debris. Iris crouched down and reached toward it. The hatchling hissed, showing its small, sharp teeth. It did not understand that she was trying to help. I know," Iris said, keeping her voice calm despite the terror pounding in her chest. The storm was here. Lightning struck the landing pad with a sound like the world breaking. "But you have to trust me. Right now." She reached further and the hatchling snapped at her hand. Its teeth caught her glove but did not break through. Iris ignored the pain and grabbed the creature by its middle, pulling it out from under the overhang. It weighed less than she expected, all bone and scale with almost no meat on it. The hatchling struggled, terrified, but Iris held on tight. She turned and ran back toward the bunker, her legs burning with effort. The wind was a physical force now, pushing against her, trying to knock her down. Rain hammered her face and exposed skin, leaving burns that would take days to heal. Lightning turned the world white. Thunder shook her bones. Iris could not see anything, could not hear anything, could only keep running in what she hoped was the right direction. The hatchling had gone still in her arms, either accepting its fate or too scared to move. Then hands grabbed her. Peterson had come out into the storm, tied to a safety line, and he hauled both her and the hatchling through the bunker door. Other colonists pulled them inside, and the heavy door slammed shut behind them with a boom that rivaled the thunder outside. Iris collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. Chemical burns covered her face and hands. Her lungs felt like they were on fire from breathing the toxic air. But she was alive. The hatchling was alive too, trembling in her arms, but breathing. Its golden eyes looked up at her, and this time there was no fear in them. Only confusion and something else. Something that might have been gratitude. "You are completely insane," Peterson said, but his voice held a note of respect. "What is that thing?" "Not a thing," Iris said, cradling the small creature against her chest. "His name is Ash." She had not meant to name him, but the words came out anyway, and they felt right. Ash, like the dust and rock of this harsh world, like something that survived when everything else burned away. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, for the first time in 3 years, Iris did not feel alone. Emergency lighting cast shadows across the bunker walls. 17 colonists shared the space, along with enough supplies to last a week if necessary. The storm howled outside like a living thing trying to get in. Every few minutes, something slammed against the bunker's exterior, debris caught in the wind and thrown like weapons. Iris sat in the corner furthest from the others, Ash curled in her lap. The hatchling had stopped trembling, but his breathing was shallow and rapid. His injured wing lay at an unnatural angle, and she could see swelling along the joint where it connected to his shoulder. She opened her emergency medical kit. Basic supplies meant for humans. Bandages, antiseptic spray, pain medication, a collapsible splint. Nothing designed for a Draken, but she would have to make it work. "Let me see," she said softly, reaching for the damaged wing. Ash flinched away, making a low sound in his throat. Not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. His golden eyes watched her with suspicion. "I know it hurts," Iris said, "but if I do not fix it now, it will heal wrong. You understand? Wrong." She gestured at the bent wing, then made a straightening motion with her hands. Ash watched her gestures. His head tilted slightly, processing. Then slowly he extended the injured wing toward her. The movement clearly caused pain, but he did it anyway. Good, Iris breathed. Good, okay. This is going to hurt worse before it feels better. She examined the wing carefully, running her fingers along the bone structure. The joint was dislocated, not broken. That was lucky. She had seen enough injuries during her military service to know the difference. But relocating a joint on a species she knew nothing about was risky. The bone structure might be different. She might cause permanent damage. But leaving it dislocated would definitely cause permanent damage. So really, she had no choice. Ready? She asked, looking into Ash's eyes. The hatchling held her gaze, waiting, trusting. Iris took a breath and pulled the joint sharply, feeling for the moment when it would slip back into place. Ash screamed, a high-pitched sound that made everyone in the bunker look over. His small body went rigid, claws digging into her flight suit hard enough to draw blood. Then she felt it. The joint popped back into position with a sensation that she felt more than heard. Ash went limp, panting. Done, Iris said, her hands shaking. Worst part is done. She worked quickly now, using the collapsible splint and bandages to immobilize the wing. It was not perfect, but it would hold. The wing needed time to heal without further damage. Ash watched her work, no longer resisting. When she finished, she sprayed antiseptic on the chemical burns covering his scales from the storm. He flinched at the sting but did not pull away. You are very brave, Iris said. She had not meant to speak out loud, but the words came anyway. Braver than you should have to be. She pulled out a protein bar from her kit and broke off a piece, offering it to Ash. He sniffed it cautiously, then took it with surprising gentleness. His teeth could have taken her finger off, but he carefully accepted only the food. He chewed slowly, as if not sure whether this strange human food was safe, then swallowed. A moment later, he made a small chirping sound that might have been approval. Iris smiled despite herself. She broke off another piece and offered it. This time, Ash took it without hesitation. Wade, called out Peterson from across the bunker. That thing going to be a problem? His name is Ash, Iris said. And no, he is not a problem. Drakens are not pets, said another colonist, a woman named Rodriguez who worked in geological surveys. They are intelligent beings. The treaty specifically prohibits taking them as property or, I am not taking him as property, Iris interrupted. I am helping an injured creature. There is a difference, is there? Rodriguez moved closer, her expression concerned rather than hostile. Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you are forming a bond with a native species. That has consequences, for you and for the colony. Iris looked down at Ash. The hatchling had fallen asleep in her lap, exhausted from pain and fear. His small body rose and fell with each breath. One of his forelegs rested against her arm. Claws retracted now, just touching her as if to make sure she was still there. I found him dying, Iris said quietly. His own kind rejected him, left him to die because his wings are not perfect. I could not just leave him. Why not? Rodriguez asked. It was not a challenge, just a genuine question. You know the rules. We all know the rules. Non-interference, we are guests on this planet. We have to respect their customs even when we do not understand them. Some customs do not deserve respect, Iris said. Leaving a child to die because it does not meet expectations? That is not culture. That is cruelty. The bunker went quiet. Outside the storm raged on, but inside everyone was listening now. I had a daughter, Iris said. The words surprised her. She had not talked about this in 3 years. Not since the incident. She was born with a heart defect. The doctor said she would not live past her first birthday. But she was a fighter. She made it to 7 years old. 7 years of surgeries and hospitals and pain. But she smiled every day. She loved every moment she had. Iris's voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. She died because I was not there. I was on a mission, following orders, doing my duty. And when the emergency came, when she needed me most, I was on the other side of the galaxy flying patrol routes that did not matter. Tears ran down her face now, mixing with the chemical burns. I cannot bring her back. I cannot fix what I broke, but I can be here now. For this one small creature that nobody else wants. That is not against regulations. That is being human. Nobody spoke. Rodriguez looked away, her jaw tight. Peterson studied his boots. Iris looked down at Ash. still sleeping peacefully despite the storm and the pain and the strange place. She slowly extended her hand palm up over his small body, not touching, just offering. A gesture without force, without expectation, just possibility. Ash's eyes opened, those golden eyes that had watched her for weeks. He looked at her hand, then at her face, then back at her hand. Slowly, carefully, he lifted his small clawed forefoot and placed it in her palm. The contact was warm. His scales were rough but not sharp. His claws rested against her skin without pressure. It was trust made physical, a promise between two creatures who had both been abandoned, both been judged unworthy, both been left to face the storm alone. "Okay then," Iris whispered. "Okay, I have got you." The storm would pass eventually. The difficult conversations would come. The consequences would have to be faced, but for now, in this moment, in this small shelter against the tempest, two outcasts had found each other, and that was enough. 3 days after the storm passed, Iris stood in Administrator Pacheco's office with Ash sitting at her feet. The office was too clean, too organized, with certificates on the walls and a window overlooking the landing pads where her ship sat grounded by official order. Pacheco himself sat behind his desk wearing the expression of someone dealing with a problem he had not asked for and did not want. "Explain to me again," Pacheco said slowly, "why you thought bringing a Draken into the bunker was appropriate." "He would have died," Iris said. "The storm would have killed him. That is not your concern. The Drakens manage their own population. If they exclude weak members from their shelters, that is their cultural practice. We do not interfere. So we just let children die? That is our policy now." Pacheco rubbed his temples. "This is exactly the problem. You are thinking of it as a child. It is not a human child. It is an alien creature with its own species rules and customs. He has a name," Iris said. "Ash, and he is just as much a child as any human would be at his age." At the sound of his name, Ash looked up at her. His splinted wing was healing well, and he had gained weight from the food Iris had been sharing with him. He looked healthier than he had in weeks. Healthier, but also more alert and aware. His golden eyes tracked the conversation even though he could not understand the words. "That is another problem," Pacheco said. "You named it. You are forming an attachment. This needs to stop before it becomes an incident." "It is already an incident," said a new voice. Iris turned to see a Draken entering the office through the side door, which had been modified to accommodate their larger frames. This one was ancient by their standards. His bronze scales faded to a dull copper and scarred from decades of life on Theros 7. His name was Corvex, and he served as one of the intermediaries between the Draken clans and the human colony. Corvex's large eyes focused on Ash, and his lip curled to show teeth. "That hatchling is skybroken, unworthy. It should have died in the storm as nature intended." "Nature did not intend anything," Iris said. "His genetics intended for him to be different. That is not the same as being broken. You know nothing of our ways, human." Corvex moved closer, his wings partially spread in a dominance display. Ash immediately pressed against Iris's leg, making himself smaller. "That creature is flawed. Its wings cannot sustain flight. It will never hunt properly, never defend territory, never contribute to the clan. Among my people, such weakness cannot be tolerated." "Have you actually examined him?" Iris asked. "Or did you just assume he was broken because he is different?" "I do not need to examine what is obvious." "Then you are a fool," Iris said. The words came out before she could stop them. Pacheco made a sound of alarm, but Iris kept going. "I examined his wings. The bone structure is not malformed. It is evolved. He is built for quick maneuvers, not sustained flight. That is not weakness. That is specialization." Corvex's eyes narrowed. "You claim to understand Draken physiology better than a Draken?" "I claim to have actually looked at him instead of making assumptions." Iris crouched down beside Ash, carefully extending one of his wings despite the splint. "Look at the joint structure here. The way the smaller bones connect. This is not random mutation. This is a phenotype that probably existed in your ancient ancestors. He is not broken." "He is different." Corvex leaned closer, studying the wing. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he straightened up. "Even if what you say is true, it does not matter. He has bonded with a human. He has chosen your kind over his own. That is corruption. That is betrayal." "He had no choice," Iris said, standing up. "Your people rejected him, left him to starve. I was the only one who showed him any kindness. That makes it worse, Korvac said. Now he will never be accepted among Drakens. He is lost to us, and you have created a problem that violates the treaty. Pacheco cleared his throat. What are you saying exactly? I am saying that Hatchling cannot remain in this colony or near Draken territories. He must be removed, permanently. Removed how? Iris asked, her voice cold. Korvex's expression was unreadable. That is not your concern. Like hell it is not. Iris felt Ash press harder against her leg, sensing the tension. You want to kill him because I saved his life? Because he committed the crime of accepting help? I want to maintain the treaty, Korvac said. Your presence here depends on our tolerance. If you corrupt our young, that tolerance will end. One hatchling is not your young. You already threw him away. That was our right. Now you will surrender him to our judgment, or the council will consider this an act of aggression. Pacheco stood up quickly. Now wait a moment. Nobody said anything about aggression. I am sure we can find a reasonable solution. The solution is simple, Korvax interrupted. The human stops interfering with Draken affairs. The hatchling is returned to us. The matter ends. Iris looked down at Ash. The small creature looked back up at her with complete trust. He did not understand the words, but he understood tone and body language. He knew something bad was happening. His small claw reached up and touched her hand, seeking reassurance. No, Iris said. Excuse me? Pacheco's voice went up an octave. I said no. I am not handing him over to be killed. Wade, you cannot. This meeting is over, Korvac said. You have until tomorrow sunset to comply. If you do not, the consequences will be severe. For you and for your colony. The Draken turned and left through the side door, his talons clicking on the metal floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Pacheco sat down heavily. Do you have any idea what you have just done? Yes, Iris said calmly. I made a choice. A choice that could get you expelled. Get your pilot license revoked. Possibly get criminal charges filed. I know. Then why? Iris looked at the administrator. This man who followed rules because rules kept things simple and safe. Who had never had to choose between what was legal and what was right. Because I already failed to protect someone I loved once. I will not do it again. That night, Iris did not go back to her quarters. She went to her ship. She spent 3 hours running pre-flight checks, loading supplies, plotting courses to places the colony did not monitor regularly. Ash watched from the co-pilot seat, his head tilted as if asking questions she could not answer in words. When the navigation system showed multiple routes leading to the unmapped territories beyond the mining zones, Iris sat back and looked at Ash. You want to see what is out there? Beyond all this? Ash chirped softly. A sound she had learned meant he was content. Me too, Iris said. Me too, she checked the time. 4 hours until dawn. 6 hours until her deadline with Korvax. 8 hours before Pacheco would realize what she planned to do and try to stop her. Iris powered up the engines and began the launch sequence. No more meetings. No more negotiations. No more choosing between rules and conscience. This time she would not fail. This time she would not arrive too late. The ship's unauthorized launch triggered every alarm in the colony control tower. Iris heard the urgent transmissions demanding she return immediately, threatening consequences, promising negotiations if she would just turn around. She switched off the communication system and focused on flying. Ash had strapped himself into the co-pilot seat, using harnesses Iris modified to fit his smaller frame. He watched the viewport as Theros 7's surface fell away beneath them, the colony lights becoming tiny points against the dark landscape. His golden eyes were wide, but he showed no fear. Only curiosity. First time flying? Iris asked. She knew he could not answer, but talking helped calm her nerves. Behind them, 2 security ships were launching in pursuit. She could see them on her sensors, but her modified hauler was faster than anyone expected. Years of unauthorized upgrades had made her ship more capable than official records showed. She pulled into a steep climb, then banked hard left into a canyon system that would confuse their sensors. The maneuver would have torn apart a stock ship, but her reinforced hull handled it. Ash made a small chirping sound that might have been excitement or might have been terror. Either way, he kept watching through the viewport, transfixed. We are going somewhere they will not follow, Iris said. The Barrens. Nobody goes there. Too dangerous, too remote, no valuable resources. Perfect for people who want to disappear. The pursuit ships fell behind as Iris threaded through canyons barely wider than her wingspan. This was what she was good at, flying, pushing the limits, trusting her instincts and her ship. The rest of the world made her feel lost, but here, in the pilot's seat with controls under her hands, everything made sense. They flew for 6 hours, the landscape below changing from mining territories to wilderness. The radio stayed silent. Either the colony had given up, or they were out of range. Iris suspected both. As the sun rose, painting the rocky landscape in shades of orange and red, Iris spotted what she was looking for. A small valley with scattered structures and a landing pad marked by improvised lights. The barren settlement, a community of humans who had walked away from the mining colonies, seeking something the corporate world could not provide. She brought the ship down gently, her landing struts touching the pad with barely a shudder. As the engines powered down, she saw people emerging from the structures. Humans of various ages wearing patched clothing and carrying the weathered look of people who lived on the edge. An older woman with gray hair and a mechanical arm approached as Iris opened the hatch. "You are Wade? Got a message you might be coming. Did not expect you this soon." "Message?" Iris climbed out, helping Ash down after her. "From who?" "Peterson. That pilot from your colony sent a coded transmission last night. Said you were making a run for it and might need friends." The woman smiled. "Name is Hayes. Welcome to the end of the world." Over the next few days, Iris learned about the settlement. 43 humans had built lives here, growing food in hydroponics, mining just enough to trade for supplies and avoiding the attention of both the corporations and the Drakens. They were outcasts by choice, people who could not or would not fit into the structured colony life. But they were not alone. In a cave system near the settlement, Iris found others. Drakens who had been cast out by their clans. Most were older, scarred from battles or bearing disabilities that made them less useful to the rigid clan structures. A few were younger, guilty of the crime of thinking differently or questioning traditions. One of them was a Draken named Shale, younger than Corvex, but older than Ash by many years. Her scales were gray-green, and her left wing had been broken long ago and healed at an angle that made long flights painful. She watched Ash with interest as Iris explained their situation. "Sky broken," Shale said in heavily accented human language. She had learned it from trading with the settlement. "I was called this too, because I questioned the elders when they ordered a raid on a human outpost. I said maybe we should try talking first. So they broke my wing and cast me out." "I am sorry," Iris said. "Do not be. I am more free here than I ever was in the clans." Shale crouched down to Ash's level, examining him carefully. "His wings are not broken. They are different. Built for speed and quick turns, not distance. Rare phenotype. My grandmother had wings like this. She was best hunter in her clan, but only in close terrain. That is what I tried to tell them," Iris said. "They do not want to hear. Different is dangerous to them. It makes them question their own worth." Shale stood up. "This hatchling will never be accepted by the clans, but here different is normal." Over the following weeks, Iris found a new rhythm. She flew supply runs for the settlement, using her piloting skills to navigate dangerous territory that kept the authorities away. The settlement paid her in food and repairs, enough to survive. It was not the career she had imagined, but it was honest work that did not require her to compromise her values. Ash grew stronger. His wing healed straight and true, and under Shale's guidance he learned to use his unique build properly. He could not soar for hours like the clan Drakens, but he could turn on a wingtip and accelerate in bursts that left others struggling to follow. His style was different but effective. 5 months after their escape, everything changed. A massive earthquake struck the mining colony and the Draken cliff dwellings simultaneously. The tremor collapsed tunnels, destroyed buildings, and trapped dozens of beings from both species under rubble. The colony sent out emergency broadcasts calling for any available help. Iris sat in her quarters listening to the desperate pleas. Hayes stood in the doorway. "Your call," the older woman said. "We can ignore it. They made it clear we are not welcome." Iris looked at Ash, now nearly her size and strong enough to fly for real. "What do you think?" Ash tilted his head, then chirped and moved toward the door. The message was clear. Help was needed. "They will probably arrest me," Iris said. Hayes shrugged. "Probably. But you would never forgive yourself if you did not try." Iris gathered everyone who could help. 12 humans from the settlement, including Hayes. 5 exiled Drakens including Shale, and Ash, determined to prove his worth. They flew back to the colony in a ragged convoy of ships. As they approached, Iris opened communications. "This is Iris Wade. We are here to help with rescue operations. You can arrest me after we save lives." There was a long pause. Then Pacheco's voice came through, strained but steady. "Understood. Coordinating with Draken rescue teams. We need flyers who can navigate collapsed structures." The rescue operation lasted 18 hours. Iris flew into partially collapsed buildings, using her ship's external arms to shift rubble while teams on the ground pulled survivors free. Ash proved invaluable, his small size and quick reflexes allowing him to dart through gaps that larger Drakens could not navigate. He found 3 trapped miners and led rescuers to them. The exiled Drakens worked alongside their former clanmates, old grudges forgotten in the face of disaster. Shale coordinated with Corvex himself, directing rescue efforts with calm efficiency that earned reluctant respect. When the last survivor was pulled from the rubble, Iris landed her ship on what remained of the main pad. She was exhausted, covered in dust and blood, but alive. Ash landed beside her ship, his wings folding properly despite the splint finally removed weeks ago. Corvex approached slowly. The ancient Draken looked tired and older than before. He stared at Ash for a long moment. "That hatchling saved 3 of my clanmates today." "His name is Ash," Iris said quietly. "Ash," Corvex repeated. He looked at Iris. "I was wrong about him, about what he could become, and about me." Corvex's expression was unreadable. "The treaty forbids taking Drakens as property, but it says nothing about partnership, about friendship between species." He looked at the mixed groups working together to clear rubble. "Perhaps our treaty is too narrow. Perhaps we all need to learn from this." Pacheco approached, looking uncomfortable. "Wade, technically you are still facing charges for—" "Actually," Hayes interrupted, stepping forward with a data pad, "according to Colonial Law Section 47, Paragraph 8, any charges related to emergency situations are suspended if the accused provides material aid during crisis response." "Which she did, extensively," Pacheco blinked. "How did you—" "I used to be a corporate lawyer before I moved to the Barrens." "You pick up useful information." Hayes smiled. "Wade is legally clear, and I would be careful about pressing charges after she just helped save 40 lives. Over the following months, things changed slowly but noticeably. The settlement in the Barrens was officially recognized and given trading rights. Exiled Drakens began returning to limited contact with their clans, building bridges between the outcasts and the traditional society. It was not perfect, but it was progress. Iris continued flying, but now openly and with purpose. She ferried supplies between the colony, the Barren settlement, and the Draken territories, becoming an unofficial ambassador between the groups. Her ship, once just a cargo hauler, became a symbol of cooperation. One evening, 6 months after the rescue, Iris sat on a cliff edge watching the sunset. Ash sat beside her, now fully grown and magnificent. His wings, once considered deformed, were strong and unique. Different, yes, but not broken. Never broken. She extended her hand, palm up. The same gesture she had made in the bunker during the storm, when everything was uncertain and frightening. Ash placed his claw in her palm. Not because he needed to, but because he wanted to. The gesture of equals, of partners, of friends who had found each other in the dark and chosen to face the light together. "You know," Iris said softly, "I never thanked you." Ash tilted his head, questioning. "For following me. For not giving up. For showing me that sometimes the rules are wrong and the only thing that matters is doing what is right." She smiled. "You saved me more than I saved you." Ash chirped softly and leaned against her shoulder, comfortable and content. Below them, the colony lights mixed with Draken fires on the cliffs. 2 worlds learning to share the same sky. Iris looked up at the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there were new worlds to explore, new problems to solve, new outcasts who needed someone to reach out a hand. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years she was not afraid of it. She had found her purpose, not in following the path others expected, but in forging a new one. And she had found it by refusing to look away when the world demanded she be blind, by choosing compassion over comfort, by extending her hand to the one creature everyone else had abandoned. The hated baby dragon had followed her until she reached out her hand. And in that moment, both of their lives had changed forever.